Hello, hello. Welcome to the first live stream of 2026. My name is Sohan Maheshwar. This is AuthZed Office Hours. We haven't done one of these in a while, but essentially, this is our bi-weekly or fortnightly live stream where we talk about all things authorization. We thought we'll kick 2026 off by doing something brave and predicting the world of authorization in 2026. And I have Jake, AuthZed CEO here. Jake, welcome back. You did one of these last year.
We did, yeah. How'd we do?
Yeah, we did pretty well, I think. Okay, so a quick, what we're going to do today. We'll take a look at Jake's scorecard from last year, where he had predicted what the authorization landscape in 2025 would look like. We'll do a quick roundup of all the things that were important in the year 2025, and then we're going to spend a bunch of time on Jake's predictions for 2026. And I can tell you, we have some hot takes planned for that part. So, Jake, we're going to jump straight into it. And this is the scorecard from last time around. So, these were your predictions for 2025, right? You said a lot of companies will use AI. We won't know who the winners will be with few standout hits. And we'll probably be able to talk about how companies are using SpiceDB plus AI, not AuthZed. That should be AI. So let's see how we did on this, Jake. What do you think?
Well, I think we can all agree that AI was pretty important in 2025, and an exponential number of companies, both purveyors and consumers of AI, came out of the woodwork. So I think that was I guess you've got it there, a green check mark for that one. Few standout hits. Did you feel like there were a few standout hits?
I would say yes, given that I think at least in the consciousness, there are a few tools that or companies that people talk about, although there might be like an outsized number of companies actually doing it, right? So I think based
Right.
on that, I would give that a yes.
All right, cool.
All right.
And then we won't know who the winners will be. I think that's still true. At the start of 2025, I think everybody would have been Team OpenAI. And I think we've seen companies like Grok or X.AI, and I think we've seen Google with Gemini and Anthropic making huge strides in 2025 to sort of level the playing field. So I think that's also true. I think
Mm.
we still sort of don't know who the winners will be, although we can kind of tell where the momentum is at the moment. And that last one there, we'll talk about how AI companies are using SpiceDB. Definitely green check mark there. We talked about our OpenAI case study at the AuthZed is 5 event. So that was super exciting. We had that one in the works since late 24, and the OpenAI approval machinery finally, got us to a place where we could talk about the work that we're doing together. So really excited for that, and really excited to share more sort of stories in that vein pretty soon.
Yeah. Oddly enough, and Jake, this is going to maybe point two on this list, which is you mentioned how at the start of the year, everyone assumed OpenAI, right? Definitely the winner, but we saw things like Gemini and Anthropic and stuff really catch up. So I think it is a pretty hot space right now. It's not very obvious who the one winner is going to be, and even in the history of, say, web and mobile, we saw some that we assumed would be the winners, and it didn't turn out that way. Like no one would have expected Google, for instance, to really be like the top player in like the whole web ecosystem, but here we are.
Well, I think a lot of people would have predicted Microsoft to win sort of the web transformation, and it took a little longer, but Microsoft is still kicking and one of the most valuable companies in the world. And I think it's better for everybody if there isn't one single winner, right? Like I don't think AI should be a winner take all market, because with all monopolies, we the consumer end up being the losers when that happens.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right. And just reminding folks, this is Office Hours format. So if you have any questions, put it in the chat. Just let us know where you're watching this from. We always love to hear from our audience. So we've done the scorecard bit, Jake, but I do have a bit of a challenge for you this time. I feel the predictions you made here were, a little safe. So let's see if we can up the ante and go a little more specific for 2026 later on in the
Yeah,
stream.
I was going to use the word milk a toast, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Or maybe
Your words,
lazy.
not mine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Having said that, though, Jake, I'd love to spend some time sort of reviewing the year in the world of authorization, in the world of AI, because lots happened, right, this past year. And I think we can start off with, I think, the big one, which is the OWASP list. Maybe you can talk through a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I think we may have gotten 3 OWASP lists this year. So we got the top 10, which they don't publish with any great frequency. We got the newest iteration. When was the last one before 2025?
2021. I think they've been doing like every 4 years, perhaps. So yeah, 2021 and now 2025.
Yeah. So in 2025 list, broken access control stayed number 1, which we did a whole video just about that. We're both,
Yeah.
we were patting ourselves on the back for having a company in this space, but also sort of like, wait, why aren't we helping more, right? Like,
Yeah.
if we're really crushing it, that should start to fall down the list. So, yeah, that was a big one, and we saw a lot of moves on that list. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
can
and
you
in that
post a
also,
link
Jake.
to our chat?
Oh, yeah. Also, in that specifically, if you take a look at the sheer numbers itself, the number of CWEs map, common weakness enumeration, and the total occurrences, broken access control was number 1, which I think tells you something about our industry.
Yeah, that max coverage number is kind of interesting too, which means that at one of the companies that they polled, 100% of their applications had broken access control.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
so it's like, hey, can I, who was that?
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious. Maybe don't do any financial transactions over there.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. For folks watching, I posted the OWASP top 10 link in the chat as well. So that was one of the OWASP top 10 lists, Jake. I think there were a couple of others, right? Like there was the one on the top 10 risks for LLM and Gen AI apps as well.
Yep. And then they had another Agentic top 10 that came out toward the end of the year. The Agentic one was really interesting too, because it had this really cool mapping table in the back of it, which talked about how the LLM and the Agentic lists were sort of subsets or dovetailed in with the overall lists, right? So it would say like this CWE that exists in the Agentic top 10 maps to this LLM top 10, which maps to this overall OWASP top 10. And gave kind of like an interesting way to think about it, because it's like at the outset, it's like, are these 3 completely separate things? And like, obviously not, right? Like if you're having challenges with LLMs or with agents, right, those are going to manifest themselves in challenges within the apps that actually contain or put those things to work. So I thought that was really neat, how they sort of coordinated between all the different lists and told you exactly how to contextualize this information that they were giving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And on that topic, right, I think even if you look at the LLM top 10 list, at least 3 of them, at the very least, at least 3 of them can be solved with broken access control, right? We have the sensitive information disclosure, number 2. We have the excessive agency, which also ties into agents and things like that. And also we have the vector and embedding weaknesses, all sort of tie into the story of broken access control that, we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And again, like pat ourselves on the back for having a company that can actually make a meaningful difference in the world and help mitigate some of these challenges that companies are running into.
Mm-hmm. And I have a question for you, Jake, putting you on the spot. But if you're either you have your own startup or you're, like a tech lead or a software architect in an enterprise, what are you taking away from, these OWASP lists? Like how are you really interpreting it in 2026 right now?
Oh man, you are putting me on the spot there. I think it's important to focus on where these weaknesses are showing up. But that's a little bit, we always say when you have a startup or you're a tech lead or an architect and you're planning for the future, you want to skate to where the puck is. I think that's a famous, was it Gordie Howe quote? It's like, what do you do differently from everybody else? Well, I skate to where the puck is going to be and not where the puck is currently. So we always want to like look forward and how are we going to architect our applications to close down the next group of big CWEs that show up, right? Like, because these are things that have had time to manifest and come home to roost already. And so that's where we start thinking about like, all right, excessive AI agency. What can I do now to prevent that from being a challenge and having my app show up on this list a few years down the road? So I mean, that's how I would be thinking about it, right? Like, ultimately, as an architect, what you're being paid for as a tech lead or as a startup founder, what you're doing is you're trying to look into a crystal ball and figure out where is the world going and how can I help shape that future to be a better one, or a future that we can have impact in.
Right, and I'm hoping that our live stream about predictions for this year helps with that, with helping people look into that crystal ball, because that's what we're going to talk about, right? And I feel the challenge with tech right now, not just AI authorization, is because things are moving so fast, the predictions probably become a little harder to do because, there's just so much happening. You really need to sort of like have that ear on the ground to, get a sense or get a pulse of what's happening. So.
Yeah, if you asked me for my January predictions, this would be a totally different video than my 2026 predictions.
Yeah. All right. So, Jake, now I think now's the time. We're going to put you on the spot and do predictions, and I will post each of those predictions in the comments as well, just so that there's a permanent record of it, and we can come back to it exactly a year from now. No pressure, Jake.
Yeah, you're already readying next year's scorecard.
Yeah. All right. Let's go.
All
so,
right.
what do you think?
Prediction number
I
one.
think we have to start. Yeah, I think we have to start with predictions one. I'm assuming it's going to be about AI. Given that's what we're talking about. So let's go.
Yeah, there might be a little AI in here. So prediction number one is that Agentic RAG will be the standard way to do RAG. Maybe I'm sort of like the last person to realize this, but RAG can be a tool call, just like any other tool call that an agent is capable of making. And the agent can go and ask for information that it thinks might be relevant. So contrast this with the way that we've traditionally done RAG, which is you get a prompt from a user, you send that to a vector database, you find all of the possible relevant information that you possibly can, you score it, you re-rank it, you jam it in the context, and then you start generating output tokens. This has a challenge of sort of polluting the context with a lot of information. And I think we're seeing a lot of people focus a lot on managing the context and keeping the context as clean and relevant as possible. And I think Agentic RAG really plays into that mindset of let's let the agent determine what it wants information about, and let's let it go and retrieve that at a specific time. And I pulled up a few articles to sort of back this point. Can I share my screen? Yeah. So Claude Code recently brought AI subagents, or not recently, but AI subagents are a way in Claude Code to sort of let something noodle or toil about a subtask while keeping the parent context, the coordinator context, clean. Actually, I didn't bring this up, but there's a thing by a guy named Steve Yegge called Gastown. And this is kind of like that concept on steroids. Like, I don't know if anybody read the Gastown thing, but it's functionally a way to manage context or allow you to run multiple parallel contexts at the same time. And so this whole idea that we're going to have to manage our context and keep it clean is really taking shape. Cloud Code also recently launched a thing called tool search. So before, when you would open up any kind of actual Anthropic agent SDK tool, of which Cloud Code is one, it would have to read all of your tool definitions and then jam them into the context. And so they launched this tool search to help keep the context clean. And that same concept applies to RAG. And then this is also taking shape as like a more broad thing. So we've also got several companies out there that are coming out with the concept of agent memory or AI agent memory. And this is basically another way to just compress and keep context clean and only bring the relevant things into the context when they're needed. I don't know how many of you have been like coding with Claude Code, but when you get to the point where the context has to be compacted or recycled, it's like someone took, they took away your superhuman coding buddy that just is crushing the problem, and they replace it with like a new grad who comes in like day one.
Yeah.
Hey, what are we working on? Right? And like they try to do some tricks to keep it fresh and to keep it clean. You can stop sharing. There's just a few other tools in that space, but I think it's important, and even people on our team are working with special Claude Code subcommands to help manage that context and keep it clean and serialize things off and bring them back in as necessary. So Agentic RAG will definitely be a big part of helping everybody keep their context clean while still giving the agents the data they need.
Okay. I mean, I use Cloud Code on a daily basis, and I've started using the sub agents, and I find it super useful. I think I just shared this earlier today in our internal Slack as well. I've created one that does code reviews every time I add code, right? So it always looks to see if code's not duplicated, if it's if there are enough definitions, that sort of thing, and I find it extremely useful to actually have those agents running in the background. So yes, I think I agree with you. I've also been hearing about agentic RAG or intelligent RAG as well, which I think sort of lies in the same plane, which is like a natural evolution of RAG. Right? I think RAG is pretty popular now. It's a very standard sort of architecture. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember before subagents were really like a thing. Claude Code would run those kinds of tools, those linters and unit tests and things. They would run it in the main context. And
Yeah.
the 5-minute experience is great. It's like, oh, it ran off and it fixed a problem. But the 10-minute experience is awful because you realize that when it went and ran those tests and slurped up all the output, your context was just totally polluted and 60% full already after doing one thing. So moving it off to subagents really sort of helped isolate and fix that problem. And as you say, intelligent RAG is sort of another step down that path.
And do you think this has any sort of impact on costs as well? Because I know, in the consciousness, there's so much talk about costs because of an increased token usage, which of course is related to context and times and stuff. So is there something there you think as well?
I don't think, I mean, it's interesting, right? Maybe in some ways it helps to reduce cost because you're not having to have the main context loop relearn what it's doing every few minutes. But in some ways, it's also probably increasing cost because every time you boot up a subagent, it itself is the new grad. It's like, all right, cool, I'm here. What are we doing today?
Yeah.
So you kind of have to teach the subagent every time what's going on. That was one of the interesting things about that Gastown article that I brought up is that all of the subagents are sort of really long living things. And then you have managers and workers who are kicking them and telling them go get back to work, focus on this thing instead. So I don't know. If I had to guess, it is to Anthropic's benefit for us to all use many tokens, but to
Yes.
feel that we're getting value out of those tokens, right? So,
Yeah.
they want big number to go up, just like everybody else. But they can't sort of burn their audience and make you feel like, wow, we wasted 10 times as many tokens and did twice as much work. Aren't you happy? Right? No one's going to be happy with that.
Yeah, fair. And where do you see the sort of you mentioned it briefly, but I'll sort of bring it back. But we've spoken about RAG and LLM and agents and stuff. There was this brief period, I think, last year where everyone spoke about MCP, and then I don't know if it's died down or it's evolving. I know that spec is in a state of evolution, and do you see it play like a role in this thing as well? You spoke about the MCP tool thing.
Yeah, absolutely. MCP is still far and away the number one way that people are doing tool calls. You've got ACP, which, as far as I understand, is a fork of MCP, and then the MCP spec itself is making some progress. I think the authorization bits, right? I'm an authorization person. I think the authorization bits of the MCP spec still need some work. They've made some great strides on identity, right? Knowing who is invoking the tool when it gets to sort of a destination service. But we're still missing out some of the why or should they be allowed to or those kinds of things. But I think you'll see changes in that space in 2026 as well. Although that's not an official prediction. Don't write it down.
Yes. We're not writing it down. Okay, so just to recap, prediction 1, agentic RAG will become the standard way to do RAG. Cool. It's in the books. Prediction 2, Jake.
Cool.
I will write it down. Yeah.
All right. Prediction 2 is that I think we're going to see M&A activity increase a lot this year with the AI players specifically. This wave has been going on kind of long enough now to generate some outcomes. I just pulled up a chart if you want to share my screen again.
Yeah.
This is a chart of how many of the companies for each YC batch are AI focused. And you can see that starting in winter 2021, which I'm actually kind of shocked, is a little bit earlier than I would have thought. It starts to really dominate or like take a healthy portion of the focus for YC. And like, we are a YC company, but YC is not the end all be all of investing. But they are an early stage investor, right? Like they try to catch companies really early in their swing. And you can see that AI has basically just dominated the way YC is thinking about this. But that means that they're also placing a lot of small bets into companies that aren't ever going to get traction. And they're also placing bets in companies that have already seen meaningful traction happen. And both of those become interesting targets for M&A, right? So I think like some of these companies will have run out of money, and some of these companies will go on to become the next agentic memory company that everybody's talking about. So I think that this sort of AI cycle has been going on long enough now to generate some outcomes. I found a M&A Explorer, which is not a thing I'd ever heard of before, but just backing up my own bias, where they say the battle for AI gets real, how U.S. and European deal markets are heating up, and then they talk about how AI is driving a lot of the M&A activity that's happening. I also pulled together or looked at a list of the top 10 M&A deals that happened in 2025, and literally all of them were mentioning AI as why they, as a driver for why they're having, except maybe the IBM HashiCorp acquisition. I don't know. That may have predated everyone having to talk about AI.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can stop sharing. But the interesting thing for us as an authorization provider is that M&A tends to drive greater needs for authorization, like a neutral authorization technology, like what we provide at AuthZed. We find that people who are bringing in and merging tools and user bases and everything from multiple different origin sources are sometimes picking different identity providers. They're sometimes, have different takes on what an agent is, how it works, how you should do authorization for it, which, plug for a future stream of ours. We're going to talk about falsehoods people believe about AI agent authorization. But yeah, so yeah, I think we're going to see that M&A ramp up. It's just been going on long enough, and everybody's sort of assembling their AI for agents dream teams, where they're like, if I just had this component, I would be able to go and seize the AI agent market, and then they go and they look to make a purchase in that area. So I think we'll see a lot more of that in 2026, and I think we'll start to see who some of the winners are.
Yeah, I mean, on that note, right? Like, I remember there was this, again, brief period where LinkedIn was full of these memes which showed like world's highest paid athletes with like LeBron James and Cristiano Ronaldo. And then they showed like these engineers who joined Meta who were getting bonuses or whatever that was, more than what like your LeBron James was getting paid and stuff like that. And Meta also bought companies like Scale AI and a few things, right? Which a bunch of those things happened this past year too.
Yeah, we've already seen it start to pick up. I think it'll really hit its stride in 26 though.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. I think so too. I think we're going to see a lot more about this. We've also seen a lot of the FANG companies make moves in this space. I know Amazon bought this wearable AI startup called B, and I think they debuted some of their stuff at CES a couple of weeks earlier as well. So, it's not just the models that are getting picked up or like an image generation type thing, but also the things that integrate with hardware and with other parts in the value chain, right? So, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I didn't see that one. But so far, I think all of the AI hardware stuff has been pretty widely panned. Was that one? Was it neat?
Yeah. So it was in the same, area. Like I remember MKBHD panning that pin, the humane pin and stuff.
Yeah.
I think it was very similar in terms of what it did, but for Amazon, I think it integrates with like their Alexa and like those sort of devices. So I think it makes sense that way. Having worked in the Alexa team, they did. I think they did have like early mover advantage, right? And then with the launch of all the Gen AI stuff, I feel like the Google Homes and the Alexas of the world haven't really caught up. So, it could be a step in that direction.
Cool.
All right. So again, just to recap, prediction number 2 is in the books. M&As, mergers and acquisition activity between AI players will increase. Yeah, I agree. Okay, Jake, number 3. Let's go.
Okay. This is definitely going to be the spiciest take. and maybe the closest one to a coin flip, whether it'll actually happen. But I think that this year we will see China, or a model that's coming out of China, briefly occupy the top spot on the AI leaderboards. And I say briefly, like I think that at the end of this year, like it'll still be an American model. Just there's so much more CapEx happening in the US. So I think by the end of the year, we'll see an American model back on top. But I think at some point this year, we'll see a Chinese model actually make it to the top. And I think it'll kick off a lot more sort of code red style responses, right? Like I think companies will be like, uh-oh, what do we do? And I think there's a few things that are driving this. I think there's a lower cost structure in China. And I think that the switch to focusing on specialized hardware for inference actually plays into China's hands. If you want to share my screen, I just wanted to show sort of the current state. So this is just LM Arena, which, you know, some people love it, some people hate it, but this is showing the top models, and it's all the usual suspects at the top. But if we like scroll down a little bit, we start to see things like Ernie show up. Ernie is a model coming out of China. We have GLM, that's a model coming out of China, Minimax. So we're starting to see these things. And if we scroll all the way down to the like total overall model scores, again, usual suspects up at top. But then, yeah, we have Ernie here. We have Ernie. We have GLM. We have Quen, which is one of the big players from the past few years. Kimi, I don't know how to pronounce it. Kimi. That one's there. That's a Chinese model. Quen. DeepSeek, which obviously, you know, took the world by storm when they were like, look, we're the same as ChatGPT 01, but it took us like a tiny fraction of the cost to train. So I think that China is making a lot of strides. And like I say, I think some things that are happening are playing right into their hands. One of the biggest things that keeps the US with the lead in this space is having access to TSMC and ASML. So we have China did their own Manhattan project to develop EUV lithography, which is a way to create very, 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 very tiny features in silicon. And you know,
and the only company in the world that does that is ASML, right? Like now.
Yeah, for now, right?
For now, yeah.
Yeah, ASML and TSMC have the like tiny process world on lock. But like China understands what they need, the investments that they need to make in order to get to a dominant position in this space. And I think that they're doing it. They're playing the long game. And I think that that'll manifest itself in China taking that top spot. This was a one that happened recently. NVIDIA was like, all right. So for a while, I don't know if you remember, but US was blocking, and I mean, is still blocking access to the highest NVIDIA chips being exported to China. But then they said like, all right, well, we'll clear H200 chips, which are like one generation back, and you can send them to China. And China said, no, thanks. No, thanks, NVIDIA. We'll do our own thing. And that, you know, to me, that speaks of strength. That, you know, sounds like a negotiating from a position of strength. So I do think that we'll see them pop up higher.
One spicy take, I love it. This is the one that'll get clipped and shared on social media for sure.
No, and it'll be my face.
Yeah, it'll be your face. No, but I do have a question. Was DeepSeek ever at the top of that leaderboard at any point of time? Because I remember the DeepSeek hype from a few months ago, right? Where again, LinkedIn and social media and so many think pieces were full of every possible take about DeepSeek. So was it part of the leaderboard?
No. Yeah. Well, I mean, it was never at the top of the leaderboard. The big thing that shook the world up about DeepSeek was that they showed up out of the blue, and it was 01-like performance. But I can't remember the exact number of dollars, but it was like 1/10 or maybe even less to train than 01. And so on a performance per dollar basis, it became a really exciting thing. And the other thing was that the model was open weights. So anybody could just pick it up and run it. And so it was kind of like a threat to sort of this worldview that proprietary models were going to just capture up and gobble up all of the mind share, because like now Fortune 500 enterprises had an open source thing that they could run to go and try and replicate some of the results of integrating directly with O1 or Claude or whatever. So while it was never at the top, it definitely shook things up, because it was like, wait, if it can be done this quickly and for that little money, is the moat really as strong as we all thought it was?
Nice. To go back to something that you said earlier about, competition being good and monopoly not being good, I actually would love to see something like this happen, to have a model from China, Europe, or somewhere in Asia occupy a top spot in that list, because it furthers the technology. I think, that's how, I think that'll just lead to sort of more and better tech. So yeah, I'd love to see something like this happen.
Yeah, I don't think I can say anything more about that without getting into some like really spicy geopolitical takes.
Yeah. We leave that one for later though. Cool. So prediction number 3, also in the books. Again, spicy take, but China will, or a model from China will briefly occupy the top spot, at least looking at LLM Arena or like a leaderboard there. Cool. So we said we'll do 4 predictions, Jake. So this will be the last one for the day. So prediction number 4, go for it.
All right, back to leaderboards again, if you want to share my screen.
Yeah.
This is probably not a spicy take because it's been happening for a while, but I think that Postgres will surpass MS SQL Server on the DB Engines benchmark, and potentially even MySQL. And that's, MySQL has been entrenched. I've built an entire company around MySQL in the past, right? It's a very fast, very reliable engine, but Postgres is just getting all the attention. Some of the data to back this take up is Andy Pavlo, who we had on the AuthZed is 5 event and is a friend of AuthZed. He wrote in his databases in 2025 year review about the continued dominance of Postgres. I think Postgres has all the momentum. Postgres is being adopted for AI use cases, being adopted for traditional like OLTP use cases. It just kind of shines everywhere across the board. And it's just such a clean, strong piece of software that I think we're going to see it move up in the rankings. And that's actually really interesting for us as well, because I don't know if you remember, but at our AuthZed is 5 event, we had a sneak peek from the AuthZed lab where Joey, our CTO, talked about some Postgres foreign data wrapper work that we're doing to actually bring SpiceDB directly into the Postgres experience. So then you can start selecting from and joining from your authorization data directly from your Postgres instance. So for us, this is very complementary and sort of self-serving with the work that we're doing to broaden the accessibility and the availability of SpiceDB. But I think it also just happens to be a take that's going to be on the right side of history, right? Like by backing Postgres, we're going to give ourselves an advantage in this space.
Yeah, it's sort of hard to sort of, not hard, but I'm out at things like conferences and meetups and stuff fairly often. And I've been doing this for, the last decade or so. And you can tell that Postgres is everywhere, right? The sessions about like Postgres and things around it are always packed. It's so ubiquitous at this point of time. So it's absolutely on that upward, trajectory. I mean, it's already up there, but it's on that upward trajectory in terms of MySQL and Microsoft. What's it called? Yeah, MS SQL Server as well. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, MS SQL Server was like a darling cash cow for Microsoft for a long time. So to see an open source competitor make inroads against MS SQL servers, there's got to be some PMs at Microsoft who are pretty concerned about that upcoming change. But yeah, I just think it's really interesting. Postgres is kind of like just this amazing project that has amazing momentum, and it's achieved sort of meme mindshare where people are saying things like just pick Postgres, right? Like whatever you're trying to do, like just pick Postgres. And when you get meme status like that, and you sort of take the analysis aspect out of or analysis paralysis aspect out of the devs and architects' hands, like that's what can really get you on the exponential growth part of the hockey stick. So yeah, congrats to the Postgres project.
Yeah, congrats. Jimmy says Microsoft owns Citus. Is that how it's pronounced? Citus? But they're a managed Postgres. Is that officially what it is? Yeah, it is like a managed Postgres type thing. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a equivalent for like what PlanetScale does. So it will turn a single Postgres instance to a Postgres cluster that can sort of scale beyond the limits of a single machine and be robust and reliable beyond the limits of a single machine. So yeah, I guess Microsoft owning Citus is exciting for them to see Postgres success as well. They have cloud products that they host on top of that. And like, I'm sure that they're happy for that success, but they would probably rather have those cloud instances running MS SQL Server, where they're getting a much healthier license margin.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. So yeah, prediction number 4, Postgres will surpass MS SQL Server and possibly MySQL on DB engines. I must say though, DB engines, their methodology of ranking databases is interesting. It's not exactly, I think it's a proxy metric in a way, right? To sort of look at the popularity.
I think the term I would use is directionally correct, right?
Okay.
So what they do is they look at mentions and posts and job listings and things like that and try to synthesize where is the zeitgeist right now. Obviously, the gold standard here would be how many transactions per second are happening in the world on these various DB engines. But that's, I mean, even that's imperfect, because you might have some like HPC workloads that are just absolutely crushing the transactions per second, but in terms of like value delivered may not be the most important things happening. So
right.
I can see both sides of the coin.
Yeah. But I love the fact that with your predictions, you've gone super specific this time, Jake, and you're being like, okay, on this particular website, on this leaderboard, it's going to surpass it. I mean, that's a good way to go, I think.
Yeah, well, it's going to be the TikTok thing, right? Like maybe the pendulum swung too far the other way, and next year we'll be back to.
Yeah.
I think 2027 will be 365 days long.
Yeah. Okay, we'll see. Cool. So just to do like a very quick roundup, and Jake, I'll get your final closing thoughts after this roundup. Here are Jake's 4 predictions for 2026. We've gone very specific this time. One was Agentic RAG will become the standard way to do RAG. Prediction 2 was more M&As in the AI space. Prediction 3 was a spicy one, which was China will briefly occupy the top spot for an AI model. Lots of thought and data actually went behind that one, though. And prediction number 4 is Postgres will surpass Microsoft SQL Server and maybe MySQL on DB engines. We will do the stream exactly a year from now to sort of look at our scorecard. Final thoughts, Jake, before we wrap up.
I mean, I'm in the space of helping companies solve agentic authorization and authorization for RAG and all of those authorization things. But in terms of AI, I'm following along just as excited as everybody else. So I think we're going to see some amazing things happen and some things that nobody predicted, right? Like if we did a roundup of everybody's 2026 predictions, something will happen that everyone's like, nope, didn't have that on my bingo card.
Yeah.
I just look forward to our recap next year to see how we did.
Sweet. I'll have the scorecard ready. A couple of quick plugs before we wrap up. Next week, we will be talking about migration from AuthZed serverless to either cloud or open source. We'll be doing a live stream with Jimmy. And 2 weeks from now, Jake and myself will be doing a webinar about falsehoods people believe about AI agent authorization. Right? And maybe I mangled the title a little, Jake, but we will be talking about... no, I was okay?
You crushed it.
That good?
That was it.
Oh, yep. Sweet. Okay. So yeah, stick around, but don't forget to also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out some of the other videos we've done in the space of AI authorization and the ecosystem in general. Jake, thanks once again, and see you all in a week.